Hi, Joni, Vincent. My brand is High Vibration Coffee Company. The community that I serve are big thinkers, typically entrepreneurs, success coaches. I have a community that's specifically in the high-tech industry. I have a lot of friends and ex-colleagues in Microsoft, Apple, Salesforce.com. So that's sort of high-tech software industry. But there's a niche within that industry itself that's sort of focused on high vibration, high frequency, conscious leadership. So that really is my niche. People who think big, think in terms of possibilities, but also are very present in their approach to business. In my early 20s, I formed an independent music company. I was kind of the business person. I was in the restaurant industry at a young age. So I started with a very entrepreneurial sort of mindset, but in my later 20s, actually joined the corporate world, always in software. I traveled with work to South Africa, to Europe, Central and South America. I had such an amazing opportunity to not only work for large global software companies, but work in very sort of entrepreneurial roles. I joined Microsoft in the late 90s. And even though they are a large corporate company, most of my roles within Microsoft were in like newer business units or startup business units. And so I thankfully had that sort of lean startup exposure, but with the luxury of working for a big brand, I started feeling a little unsettled. I started feeling like I loved the company. I loved the people with whom I worked. I loved the opportunity to travel, but I was no longer feeling fulfilled. So left Microsoft, joined another company. That helped me realize that it wasn't Microsoft that was the issue. It was what I was doing. I was no longer feeling satisfied. And so moving to another high-tech company really helped me accelerate this journey back to a more entrepreneurial focus. So mid 2016, I decided to take a sabbatical, and I just never went back to the corporate world after that. I immersed myself in masterminds and really self-development that had nothing to do with corporate leadership. This whole world opened up to me. The company I joined after Microsoft was a super alpha male charging company. And at the time, mindfulness 2.0 and the whole concept of mindfulness inside of a corporate environment was just starting to get a little bit of traction. I feel like I've now come full circle where my niche and my focus is on sort of conscious leaders. I started exploring a plethora of entrepreneurial paths. I looked at network marketing. I got involved in Brendan Burchard's high performance mastermind. I started studying the high performance coaching certification. I joined Brian Rose from London Real, joined his inner circle. Finally realized, like, Joni, you need to actually do something now. And so about 5 years ago, I moved to St. Thomas and was kind of going down a path of what I call micro franchising. I was trying to reinvent the network marketing industry because I feel like it hasn't had innovation for a long time. And literally a month after I moved there, we were hit by 2 Category 5 hurricanes. It was like living in a war zone, a small island, no infrastructure. I didn't have electricity or Wi-Fi in my home. So it impacted my, needless to say, my ability to focus on a full-time level on my entrepreneurial endeavors. But it also gave me an amazing opportunity. I shifted my focus to the community, everything from helping to get animals off the island safely. And then a friend of mine at the time, she had 3 restaurants on the island and only one of them was able to function. The other 2 were completely destroyed. And so I started helping her with things around social media. Make a long story short, I became involved in marketing, social media perspective, and also restaurant perspective. But I started looking at other things, and e-commerce kept popping up. I started looking at it just as a way, honestly, Susan, to make money in the beginning. But I had this desire to do it in a meaningful way. I didn't want to just sell anything. It wasn't AliExpress from China, which I know a lot of people in e-commerce are very respectful of. But for me, it needed to have some meaning. I bought the domain name Humanity Swagger and Village Joy and decided I was going to do something with it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I built a couple of e-commerce stores, but I was trying to spread joy. So t-shirts, caps, things like that. but it really wasn't resonating for me. And so I continued to work in the restaurant industry with my friend through another few years, and ultimately eventually decided I really wanted to go back to this concept of humanity swagger and do something with e-commerce. I decided I would first build out Buddha Laugh and focus on consciousness, but Buddha from a joyful perspective. And while I was in the middle of it, I became enthralled with specialty coffee. I have finally connected the two. One might think, what? How are they in any way connected? And so I started going down the path of, I'm going to, as part of my e-commerce store, sell specialty coffee. And then I just went down the path of specialty coffee and decided to call the coffee company specifically High Vibration Coffee Company. And it was going to be a sister store to Humanity Swagger and Buddha Laugh. Well, I learned through a lot of trial and tribulation that it's difficult enough to open one business. To try to open three simultaneously is just crazy. So I just decided to focus on High Vibration Coffee. One of the milestones was the aha moments, realizing this is a lot harder than I ever thought it would be. I've read Brian's book and listened to all of his videos, and one of the things that he prefaced his whole book, if you think that this is going to be easy and fun, stop now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes. It has been fun. I've learned more about the specialty coffee industry than I ever knew was possible. Loving it, but I'm also really loving how it has all come full circle now, where my focus is still in this entrepreneurial world, still in this conscious leadership world, but able to tie specialty coffee in with that. I started thinking about, what does specialty coffee have to do with conscious leadership and thinking big and big possibilities? I thought, number one, most people start their day with coffee. The majority of people start their day with coffee. And in the entrepreneurial and corporate world, so often it's over a cup of coffee, or meeting over a cup of coffee, or having a business collaboration, brainstorming over coffee. And then in the afternoon, very European, of course, is to have a coffee as a way to kind of stop your day and reset. For me, using specialty coffee as a vehicle or a tool to help bring people back to the present.
I just did a little advanced intel. You have kind of a sizable audience. How did you build that? And who are these people?
I spent almost 17 years with Microsoft and in global capacity. So I met a lot of people along the way. And then when I left the corporate world, I met an entirely new community of people. I enjoy interaction. I'm a very extroverted person, and I have a genuine interest in people's lives. And so I think I've just managed to stay in touch with people that way. I'm very aware that I haven't scratched the surface in terms of who I need to reach.
So when you were in Microsoft and the company after that, it sounds like you were really doing the work of an intrapreneur. Is that accurate?
I guess possibly, yes. I probably didn't think of that at the time. Microsoft and the other company, they were both very large global brands. To get your foot in the door by using the brand name Microsoft was a luxury. But for an example, the last role that I had at Microsoft was in CRM and ERP. And at the time, nobody at Microsoft even knew what CRM or ERP meant. We had no credibility with our customers, competing against companies like SAP and Salesforce.com. And so, yes, I worked for a big brand name, but to your point about being an entrepreneur, I had to teach. I had to really show up as a leader for my team, literally knocking on doors as though we were a startup company, because nobody thought of Microsoft in terms of ERP or CRM. Pretty much all of the roles I had, my first role with Microsoft was in South Africa. And again, small community. I think that I always kind of towed that line of entrepreneur, yet trying to think big. Going back to your question, yes, entrepreneur, but with an extroverted view.
That fill in the blanks question, one of the typical answers I'll get is, I used to think I needed the perfect product to sell. And now I know I need to actually build a brand with an actual person in mind. How would you answer that question?
I used to think I needed validation and approval from others about what I was doing and what I was trying to accomplish. in one regard, it served me well because I was driven, but for the wrong reasons, driven for validation and approval. But now I started to really trust my own instincts. Now I know that what I've done over the years, the course of my career to this point, I absolutely could have accomplished without needing approval or validation. And so I think I've gone from being driven in a unconscious way to now being driven and ambitious in a very conscious, present way.
I would love to know how old you are.
I'm 59.
Oh, all right. I'm about to turn 55. Same thing.
In my 30s and even maybe early 40s, I did still have that joie de vivre, and I was having fun and I was learning and I was growing. And then I hit a point in my 40s and early 50s where I felt like I plateaued, felt like I lost direction. And in the corporate world, it was all about how fast you can be promoted. And I really kind of lost my North Star, my own guiding. I stopped believing in my own instincts, I guess. I feel like I've come full circle from an age perspective, from a confidence perspective. I'm really loving where I am right now. I'm very active. I can see you are as well. I don't feel 59, whatever that means. I still feel like the same kid I was in my 30s starting out. And so that's also just a really fun, empowering feeling.
What is your long-term plan with this company?
My fingers are in so many pies right now. I'm really trying to tie it together. So there are a couple of things that I'm thinking of near term. So one is I am fascinated, besotted, smitten with the whole concept of decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, etc. And the reason I am is because I lived in South Africa when Zimbabwe was a thriving country and watched it go downhill really sadly, tragically, and fast. I was working in South America when the same thing happened with Venezuela.
Oh, boy.
I care deeply about helping people who are what I would call unbanked. And I see decentralized finance and cryptocurrency as a way to really help impoverished communities. Right now, because it's still really early days, because the market's going up and down and doesn't really yet have established credibility, the timing is not right, but ultimately, I would like to some way tie this together. And one of the ways I think I might be able to do that, oddly enough, is open one of the first specialty coffee shops in the metaverse. That would be how I could tie High Vibration Coffee Company with decentralized finance.
Tell me about your launch plan and how you're building an audience.
I am launching this week. I mean, I've been talking about this for 2 months now, and this has been so much harder than I ever thought. I've built and rebuilt the store 4 times. I have changed the branding and the logos, and I know that that's one of the things that everybody says, don't worry about things like that, but I really wanted to get the branding right, and so it is nowhere near perfect. But my launch plan is, I initially felt like I had to be on all the social media platforms, but realized there's no way I could do that effectively. Initially, we'll launch on Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn because of the corporate conscious leadership perspective. Most of that audience hangs out on LinkedIn. They might have a Facebook account, they might have an Instagram account, but they're for the most part hanging out there on LinkedIn. Then the other half of my audience, the more sort of entrepreneurial success coaches, mindset people, hang out on Facebook. I'm going to start there. I will do some paid advertising on Facebook and TikTok, but I will start more sort of organically. I will look for some micro influencers building sort of social proof, user-generated content, people who like the coffee, they like the brand, they like the idea, and really build organically that way.
All right, Joni, what would you say is your favorite thing about being in the 1% community?
One of the things that I've been so impressed with and grateful for is the ethos of mentorship. Everybody feels so accessible. I've had conversations with Jared Springer offline, and the coffee talk with Gabriel and Ryan the other day was just so wonderful to be able to just talk to the mentors in a very approachable way. So that's number one. Number two, the community, yourself, for example, just reached out, and just the support and the concept of giving first, that's really resonated. And then I think the last thing, I've spent so much money and so much time trying to figure out this journey. And I stumbled upon Ryan and his book, went for a bike ride and listened to the audiobook almost in one day. For me, it just simplified everything that I've been trying to do, which is all you need is one product at $30, selling 25 a day, and you have a viable business. And then you grow that within 12 months to 4 products. I felt like the penny dropped. Because it simplified what I've been trying to figure out this whole time. It still gives one a long-term approach, which I wanted, but it feels achievable. For me, the 1% concept just simplified things for me.
I'm so glad you were flexible. We made this work. This is perfect. This will work great.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate everything.
You are so welcome. All right. Have a fantastic time. I'll circle back when we get back home.
Sounds great. Thanks again.
Take care.